Hello, and welcome to our open water swimming success. I am Coach Lana with LB Endurance, and we're going to talk tonight about how to be successful in open water. We recently had an open water clinic, and we practiced several of these skills, but this is going to give me an opportunity to go through them with you, talking about each one a little more detail and give you kind of some notes to refer back to, which we didn't have sitting beachside or out in the water. So I'm going to start with just what typical challenges most athletes come to me with when they say, hey, I need work on open water and I want to practice getting better. And these are kind of the categories of the things that they typically struggle with. So the top issues tend to be feeling nervous and anxious, not comfortable in the water, struggling to swim straight and unable to see or sight. Dealing with chop, waves, people in the water generally is a very different condition than when you're swimming alone in a pool lane. There's always some concerns about wildlife, whether it be fish or snakes or sharks or Loch Ness monsters. There's always some concerns about wildlife. Dealing with the after effects of swimming in open water, something we call lake face, very stuffy, congested, sinus infections, sunburn, even chafing can fall in this category. And also just struggling or unable to really breathe normally when faced with cold water. And typically open water for open water races or triathlons is going to be at a much lower temperature than you're used to swimming in a pool. Most health facilities and gyms will have water temperatures in the 80s, even to the low 90s if it's a therapy pool. Collegiate swimming pools, competitive pools will be somewhere between 78 and 82. And often open water races are held even in the 70s, 60s, and even colder than that. So not uncommon to suddenly deal with the fact that you're in colder water. There are other concerns, but we'll run through these main categories in this session tonight. So starting with, being uncomfortable, being nervous, anxious in the water. So the common culprits here are going to be maybe you've had some past trauma, dealt with some issues of your own or seen others struggle or have a problem in water. It could be just simply a lack of exposure. Swimming takes a lot of frequent exposure to gain competency. And also just simply a fear of drowning, which is generally is very realistic. We exist in our lives generally in air and we walk around vertically. We're not often immersed in water, forced to think about breathing. So these are all very real concerns. When we look at how to deal with that, typical remedies, number one, getting out and swimming with other people, and swimming more often. Okay. Just frequency of contact with the water can help with a lot of these issues. And also swimming in more locations. So getting out and trying out different bodies of water, different temperatures, different clarity in the water, being able to see or not see. You never know on race day. Generally, you're not going to be in very clear water, especially if you live where we are in the southeastern United States. It's a rare moment. So often you're having to deal with water that's very cloudy and often just getting used to it is really going to help you. So more exposure. There are a couple of other resources you can look at other than just doing your own swimming. So one, there is a book called Swim EQ by Dinah Mistalis, and I'll show you that here in a second. That is available on Amazon. It is outstanding for developing a stronger mindset in the water or in any competitive environment or any endeavor you take on. It's also really good for helping you identify where you're at and what you need to do in the moment, practicing and building a skill set that you can take with you to the water so that you are ready to deal with whatever and get yourself back to a place of competence and performance. The other place is just simply doing some one-on-one instruction. Often building a stronger stroke and better swim are going to be what help you overcome some of this anxiety and fear. This is the book I was referring to called Swim EQ, Emotional Intelligence for Triathletes and Swimmers. Again, the author is Dinah Mistelis. You can find it on Amazon. If you just Google it, you can also buy it directly from her website and a couple of other locations. Pause. So another big issue that was raised is often when people come to open water clinic is working on being able to swim straight and how to sight and how to see where you're going in the water. So we all know once you've been in the water, once you're down at water level, it is very difficult to see any distance, to judge distance, and also to figure out where you're going. So, common culprits here, again, technique is often can be improved to help with this. Sometimes it's the goggles. Sometimes having goggles that are difficult to see with or see out of or see through, or they're not the right ones for the conditions. And also just a lack of practice around good technique for sighting. So I have some videos I'm going to share with you in just a second here to talk about practicing sighting. And there are a couple of different ways that we can do it. But in general, it's important to remember that sighting is basically, you're going to stitch together some glimpses. You're not going to get the entire picture, okay? I have to talk about, you're not going to come up out of the water like a prairie dog and see everything and look around and then go back down and swimming. The reason you don't do that is you will become vertical and you will stop and you will lose all your momentum. And then you have to get horizontal again and restart. It takes a lot of energy in the water. So we want to figure out how do we sight and see where we're going and develop a plan, a pathway without losing momentum. So that's where sighting comes in and having good technique around your sighting. You can practice sighting in the pool. Okay, put your water bottle at the end of the lane, practice picking your head up and to look for that. And if it's a goggle issue, honestly, try some different goggles. If your goggles are not clear as looking through a pair of glasses, it's time to replace them or find a better brand or better quality that you can see through. And there are a variety of different goggles out there. There are clear ones, okay, like a pair of glasses. There are tinted ones, more like sunglasses, that can be either smoky or polarized. They can help you deal with bright conditions. You can also get ones that are yellow or orange, which can help with low light or foggy conditions. I like to show up at a race with at least 2 pairs of goggles to pick from, sometimes even more than that. So I can adjust which goggles I'm going to use in the conditions, whether it's really cloudy or rainy or bright and sunny. The goggles that you select can make a huge difference here. So let's talk about the actual sighting technique. There are basically 3 different ways to sighting forward, and there's also sighting to the side. So anytime you take a breath and turn your head to the side, if you're swimming freestyle, is an opportunity to look to the side and look around and see what you can see. If you're swimming along a river or a canal or along the shoreline of whether it's on a lake or ocean or any kind of body of water like that, you can see trees, you can see shoreline, you might be able to see pier, a bridge, whatever is along that shore. And this is why it's so important to practice breathing to both sides, because you can turn and get that breath and catch a glimpse of what's going on to the side and never have to really lift the head up to look and see. And if you can go to the other side, you may need to see it depending on where your race is oriented versus the shoreline or landmarks. And the other thing with sighting to the side is you can also look for other objects in the water with you, which might be the buoys marking the race course. You might also see other swimmers, and you might see the kayaks or boats that are supporting the race. And all of those can help you sort of decide if you're in the right place and if you're headed in the right direction. So for instance, if you're doing a downriver swim, such as the Chattanooga 70.3 half Ironman or full Ironman, you're heading downriver, you will have shoreline along the left side of you. On the right, you'll have the line of buoys and you'll have kayaks out on water support. And depending on where you put yourself in the field of swimmers, you could have swimmers on one side or both sides of you. So Consider using objects and landmarks along the sides of a course to be a great way to sight at low cost to you lifting the head and having to counteract that change in body position. There are many opportunities though, however, it doesn't matter what race it is, you're going to have to look forward. So practice sighting forward. There are 3 techniques that we'll look at. One of them is simply taking a breaststroke. So you'll be swimming along in freestyle. Yes. And then both arms together in the front, lift up, take a breaststroke pull. You might have to do it again. Take another breaststroke pull, and then continue into your freestyle stroke. You can change your kick while you do this and go into that frog kick, that breaststroke kick while you do that, or you can keep going with a flutter kick if you're not comfortable breaststroking, especially if you're wearing a wetsuit. Again, practice this in the pool. Going to the breaststroke, again, you can decide how high you want to lift your head up out of the water, but it's allowing you to continue swimming and pick up your head to not only look, but also get a breath if you need it there. The other techniques are keeping with the freestyle stroke. So alligator eyes is simply as you're coming along, you're going to be lifting up out of the water just enough to see above the water, and then head goes back down as you continue your stroke. You don't actually break stroke or change tempo at all during doing this, but it's simply lifting the head in the middle of the stroke and then bringing it back down. The goal being to leave the nose blowing bubbles under the water and leave the mouth under the water and just the eyes coming above. This is not always great in really choppy conditions or really busy field of swimmers around you, creating a lot of turbulence. So this is really great when water's a little smoother and a little quieter to just pop up very quickly. And again, not impact by lifting your head and dropping your hips. The other way to do alligator eyes is simply that and sighting and then into the breath. So instead of coming along and just popping up and coming back down, this time you're going to pop up and finish into a breath to the side. So the head comes up, turns to the side, and comes back down. Some swimmers actually breathe into a sight. I find that this one is probably the most difficult and least natural. So many, you can try it, but you may not love it. And we're going to now have a look at some video for this. So I took some video today, and we have a swimmer coming through. And in this case, he's going to be showing us alligator eyes. Okay. And there he's attempting, and you guys may not be seeing this. Hold on a second. We need to share. There we go. Let's try this again. Okay. So here's our swimmer. He's working on alligator eyes in this video. Okay. And you can see as he's heading towards us, he's picking his head up out of the water and trying to leave his nose underneath. Not always successful. There's a nice one. And there's another good one. And then finally he stops. So that would be the way to do alligator eyes sighting. This next video, we're going to see if we can see on this one. Okay. Now he's coming in. This time he's actually taking the breath in and sighting into the breath. So he's lifting the head forward and then turning his head to the side to get the breath. We'll look at that one more time. So picking the head up. Okay, not going too high, but he's getting just a glimpse and then right into the breath and does not break the rhythm of the arms. Okay. You'll also notice that he continues with that light kick behind him. Okay. Continuing kicking while sighting is really important. You'll be less likely to let your legs drop when you pick your head up, which is bound to happen. And in this segment, I believe is going into, this is him sighting to the side, actually. This is just swimming along, breathing, looking at this dock as a way to sight. So he's not actually looking up, but he's just taking looks to his right side as he's swimming and judging where he's at in the water to arrive. So again, just looking to the side. I believe this might be our breaststroke video. So here we are coming in There he goes into his breaststroke, gets a couple looks. See the breaststroke kick, and then right back into freestyle. Show that one more time. It's going to be coming along freestyle, leaving those arms out front, and then into that breaststroke pull for the breaststroke kick. And then he starts kicking and right back into freestyle. So again, all of these techniques should be practiced in the pool. They can also be practiced anytime you swim open water. Okay, so alligator eyes into, just sharing screen, alligator eyes into the breath, and then breaststroke. All three great techniques for sighting. Okay. Another issue is dealing with chop, dealing with waves, dealing with people. Okay, so again, technique can be a place to improve, lack of practice, and also looking at mindset. So when you're in a race, you're always going to have people around you, and they're going to create turbulent water. The problem is that many of us try to practice in a swim lane all by ourselves, where we have relatively still water and no turbulence, no chop, no issues to deal with. So I highly recommend that you get in the water and share a lane when you're doing your pool practice with at least one other person, if not more. Okay, if you swim masters, this can be easily arranged by circle swimming with a small group. You could also, with your mates, decide that all, maybe 2 or 3 of you are going to swim down the lane next to each other and play around with the concept of swimming together and getting used to sharing space. Even though you may not want to, and getting used to figuring out where elbows need to go and legs need to go and how to do that. You could also have 2 people swimming just in front of you and you're going to swim kind of behind them. We didn't work that much on drafting, but getting used to the turbulence that those people in front would create can be very helpful. So again, swim with other people, swim close to other people. And if you can swim again more frequently on the swimming, also getting out in wind and waves. So if you know your race tends to, your event tends to get chop, tends to get waves, then seek out conditions in which you can practice in that. And again, figure out how you might have to adjust your technique to handle that. Swimming in new locations, places you've not been before. Again, this is going to help you get more familiar with water, but also help you figure out how to adjust your technique on the fly. So when you have the opportunity to go swim somewhere new, you should. Again, one-on-one instruction can help with this. There are definitely some technique changes that are specific to certain conditions that you can make. And talking with other swimmers who regularly swim in those conditions can be a great way to learn that, or working with a coach to help you specifically determine how to change your stroke for the conditions. And then also the swim EQ mindset can also help you be more comfortable with this and accept the fact that the water is just going to be bumpy, bumpier than what you've been practicing in during race time. Worries about wildlife. So whether we're talking about snakes, fish, sharks, jellyfish, whatever it might be, this can be something that gives a lot of anxiety because we've had a lot of spectacular movies and books in our in our pulp fiction. So in general, most of this is just, again, it's a mindset question. It also plays into sort of justifying any fear or anxiety we have to say, well, I should be anxious because there are snakes, or I need to be worried and fearful because there's a shark. In general, I think we can kind of work through this by gaining knowledge and gaining exposure. So the biggest thing you can do is know the water, talk to local swimmers, research the area, talk to boaters, go boat in the area, go see the water, try to learn as much as you can about it, and learn about if the wildlife is actually there and if it's truly a risk. Again, swimming more, being more exposed, swimming with other people, getting used to seeing other animals in the water besides humans is always good to see. And if it's truly risky, then there are definitely precautions to take, whether it's jellyfish or, if it's a quarry or a river where snakes are present along the shoreline, don't swim in that area. Okay, stay away from there. But in general, I would say in open water, when it comes right down to it, if you touch anything, anything touches you, it's just a leaf. It's just a leaf, and move on. All it was a leaf, moving forward. Often swimming leaves us, some of us, with more issues dealing with we call lake face, being very congested, stuffy. There's chafing, there's sinus infections, sunburn. How do we deal with this? I mean, at the end of the day, the culprits are that there are a lot of irritants in the water, and especially in open water. So you're going to encounter a lot of pollen, particulates, solids floating in the water. And, you know, in a pool, to be fair, you're going to deal with a lot of chlorine in the water, which is also a very irritating chemical. So, and failing to take precautions or corrective actions are what's going to lead to these becoming a problem. And sinus infections can become ear infections. And ultimately, it's going to reduce the amount of time you can swim and your health. So dealing with these and being upfront about it is going to be very helpful. Some people need this more than others, just given our different body arrangements and chemistry. So the biggest thing you can do is honestly wearing a swim cap and using earplugs. Okay, keep that water from entering your ears, especially if you tend to get water stuck in your ears. And you know who you are. You know that if you get a lot of water and you're having to, you know, do this number, simply go with an earplug. And there are a variety of earplugs available. We use a style that has like kind of a cylinder that allows you to hear, but still plugs the ear. So you can look for swimming specific earplugs that allow for hearing. Some are custom, some are disposable. Try a few different ones out and see which ones work best for you. Having a cap pulled down over the ears, a silicone cap or a latex cap, can definitely help with preventing water from going in. And for some people, that's enough. Some folks need to use both the plugs and the cap. Before you swim, you might consider using a nasal decongestant. Part of this is going to basically help open the airways and help release any mucus that might be trapped in there. So while you're exercising and things try to open up, you're going to allow more airflow to pass through and less likely for things to be in there to kind of clog and settle. If you do get some water in your nose, it's less likely to hang out in there. Swimming with your mouth closed, exhaling from your nose. So humming, okay? So in through the mouth for your inhales, exhaling through the nose and keeping the mouth closed can definitely help with less water interactions, and always blowing bubbles out the nose and not breathing in the nose at all. You're less likely to inhale and get water up into the nasal passages. Post swim, irrigating your sinuses with saline. There's a lot of different products out there. You can use something called Neomed, which is a low pressure, basically a plastic bottle. You add a saline packet to it, mix it with clean water, and you can use that to irrigate each nostril. There are some other pressurized canisters. You can find the Neomed products at any pharmacy. But doing that immediately following swimming can definitely help remove any of that gunk that basically, if it's got any bacteria in it, allow it to set up and create an infection in your sinuses. And also ear drops, and I didn't have it on this list, but using alcohol drops, swimmers' ear drops to basically help remove water from the ears can also be very helpful. When it comes to sunscreen, you know, any sunscreen is better than no sunscreen. If you want it to help with chafing, especially in swimming, using something mineral based that's using titanium dioxide or zinc oxide are going to be the best products. Okay. For those that swim a lot and get into sort of very long marathon swims with a lot of exposure, diaper rash cream, which is primarily those mineral oxides, are great products to use and can also help with chafing. So chafing simply, especially if you're using a wetsuit, basically lubricate those chafe points, and you can use products like Aquaphor, Vaseline, Tri-Slide, Body Glide. There's a variety of different products out there, and figuring out which ones work best for you. Try a few out. But basically, you know, getting around with a wetsuit just to help get it off and prevent chafing around the ankles and feet, around the wrists, and especially around the neck are going to be the big spots. And if you're using a a sleeveless wetsuit, then you're going to want to actually apply that around that opening around the arms, especially on the front side and under the armpit, because that's where the wetsuit may rub if it's not a great fit. This is exacerbated in salt water. So again, if you're going to be swimming in salt water, really take lubrication very seriously. And finally, we have can't breathe or struggle breathing in cold water. Hopping in and feeling fine, and then all of a sudden just getting really tight, or can't put your face in the water, just struggling to get a breath, and just that cold is just making it very difficult. So the common culprits, honestly, it's a failure to acclimate, a lack of exposure, and also can be just down to a lack of wetsuit practice. So practicing with a wetsuit very frequently, especially in the spring. So if you have a race in the spring, March, April, May, even into June, depending on where you live, you've got to get out in that cold water. Okay. If the swimming pools are not cold enough, and like I said early on, those temperatures are generally of a whole, 10 to 15 to 20 degrees hotter than what you're going to be dealing with outside, you need to get exposure to open water. And if that means pulling on your wetsuit, then do it. But getting out early in the season, and even riding the temperatures down in the fall, the season before, if you know you're going to race in cold water, use that system of riding the temperatures down and getting used to colder temperatures at the end of the season will help you at the start of the next one. You can also do what's called the cold shower challenge. There's a fella out there by the name of Wim Hof, the Iceman, and he's big into cold water immersion, and using cold water as therapy and ice baths and all kinds of things. One of the biggest takeaways from him is helping you to get acclimated to cold water, and simply the cold shower challenge, which is 5 days a week for a month. You simply finish every shower with a shot of cold water, starting with 15 to 20 seconds and getting to the point where you can stand in cold water for 2 minutes. The whole time you're there, you're working on your breathing. Okay, back to the breathing again, really focusing on the breathing and using that to control your response to the cold water, bring the heart rate back down, and learn how to handle the cold water stimulus. Again, more open water swims. There's just frequency is huge. If the cold water is really tough for you, adding neoprene socks or a neoprene cap underneath your silicone or latex swim cap can really extend the season. And if you want to swim through the winter, some people will even get into neoprene gloves. You can do all of that. Sometimes you could even swim with the socks or the neoprene cap in a regular bathing suit, because the nerves in the hands, the feet, and the head is the place where we lose a lot of heat. So keeping those extremities, the extreme ends of your extremities warm, can generally help you deal with colder conditions than you might think. Again, earplugs are great. Letting cold water get into the ear canal can cause more of a cold water shock, cold water reaction. So using earplugs to keep the cold water out of your ears, great for cold water. And right back to it, always focus on the breathing, okay? Immersing into the cold water and learning how to breathe as you sit down into it, as you slowly enter it, figuring out how you enter water best when it's that cold. Let's talk a little bit about wetsuits. So basically, when it comes down to best practices, you got to swim in them frequently, okay? When you get a wetsuit, race day should not be the first day that you wear it, or the day before the race should not be the first day you pull it on and see if it fits. It should be tight on you. It should be, you should feel the compression of it, but not like a tech suit if you were a swimmer, okay? But you should be able to breathe and allow your chest to expand, your diaphragm to drop, your shoulders to fully move. But it should not be so loose. And this is an example of a wetsuit that is too big. You can see how this suit on this lady is wrinkling at the arms, wrinkling and puckering at the legs. And not only were the legs and the arms just too long for her, but you can see how much extra material, extra space there was around the limbs, and she pulled it on like no problem. So it was definitely a easily one full size, way too big. And swimming in a suit like this is risky, even though you can get the neck pretty tight, a lot of water can go down into the suit and waterlog the suit, which can make it very, very difficult to swim, and very hard to remedy in the water. So be cautious that your wetsuit is not too wide or too big and that it can't catch and hold a bunch of water, because it's going to slow you down to the point of being unsafe. So make sure the wetsuit fits. Also swim in it frequently. You can take it to the pool. Okay. Modern wetsuits. You can get in the pool and swim with them. Just give them a good rinse afterwards. And it'll be ready to go for next time. Turn it inside out to hang to dry. But give it a good rinse inside and outside. If the suit is bunching up, in this case, the suit was generally just too big, like just too much material in general, but the legs and arms were a little too long for what she needed. She also, if you may struggle with getting a wetsuit off around ankles or heels, depending on, how big your feet are. So you can actually cut them back. You can actually remove usually up to about 2 inches on the sleeves and on the legs of a suit. So just looking where the seam is at and make sure you don't cut past the secondary seal on the seam. If you're unsure, send us a picture. I'd be happy to show you where you can cut it. But sometimes cutting the sleeves down and the legs down can help it feel less restrictive and make it much easier to get off when you're done swimming. Make sure to trim your nails, your fingernails, or wear gloves, or turn it inside out to pull on, because fingernails can very quickly puncture a wetsuit. A lot of us find that out very fast on day one. But there are definitely techniques to pull a wetsuit on using kind of the meat of your fingertips and not the pointed part of your fingertips to pull and maneuver that wetsuit. Like we already mentioned around chafing, make sure that you're lubricating all of the places where the neoprene is interacting against the skin. When you pull it on, give yourself a wedgie, okay? Even in this picture where the wetsuit was too big for her, we still made sure it was pulled way up, okay? So give yourself camel toe, give yourself a wedgie, pull it way up, and same into the armpits, okay? Not only pulling the legs up high, but also pulling the arms up high and really getting any extra material, pulling it up here so that when you go to move the arm, the material is loose and allows the entire shoulder to move in that pocket and is not pulling and tugging on it, because that will lead to early fatigue in the water. And while you're wearing a wetsuit, you will need to kick. Even though the wetsuit is giving you buoyancy and lift, you still need to engage a light kick to help you stay balanced, because you are going to be sitting higher in the water, which you're probably not used to. Again, if you haven't been swimming in it very much, you may not realize that it's popping you up. So engaging that light, steady kick while wearing a wetsuit can be very helpful to help you find balance in it, and not just drag the legs behind, but actually that light kick is going to help you. All right, that is the end of our presentation. That covers some of the big points that we went through on land at our most recent swim clinic. While at the clinic in the water, we practiced all of the sighting techniques. We practiced swimming next to each other. We also practiced turning buoys and going around buoys together, figuring out how to position and do that, which is kind of difficult to actually go through and explain here without having everybody actually work on it. So this is why I did not include it. We also talked about how to set up on the field and position yourself in a field of racing. And really that comes down to where you're most comfortable. And always remember that you can, in any situation, stop and pause. Okay, so even when the whistle blows to start the race, if it's an in-water start and you don't want to start with a group, you don't have to. You can wait 5, 10, 15 seconds, whatever you need, let the group clear out, and then you can start going. And really, what is 10 seconds at the beginning of a swim? It is absolutely nothing. It is no time lost at all, especially because now you can start at your pace, make sure you have your breath, and you can swim on out comfortably and not deal with thrashing, chaos, panic that is generally in that group. You can stop at any time during a race. You can tread water. You can roll on your back. In fact, that was one of the other videos I have is of the other swimmer, and I'll show that to you now, of this swimmer rolling onto his back. and actually practicing just kicking here. This was him. He had rolled onto his back, was reaching up to adjust his goggles, just a light kick. Okay. And then turning back over and swimming again. So you can do that at any time too. You don't have to stay in a particular stroke. There are no rules on what stroke that you do. So you can change that up just like we changed to do breaststroke. And here he is coming back, doing the same thing, rolling onto his back, making an adjustment, and then simply carrying on. The best part about doing that is that his body is able to stay in this position. He didn't stop, adjust his goggles, and then have to get going again. Instead, he rolled over, made the adjustment, rolled back, and carried on because he kept up that light kick the whole way. So you can also, at any time during a race, if there is a kayak or paddleboard available and you need to take a little rest and collect your thoughts or check your breathing, you can also do that at any time very easily. Okay.